Good morning, all. I hope I'm audible to all. Good morning, everybody. I request every participant to please mute their mic and switch off their video. Please, I request the participants to off their mic and off their videos, cameras. It's a humble request. We will start our webinar shortly. I request you all to be online. It's a humble request to every participant. Please turn off your videos. It's a humble request to every participant. Please turn off your videos. Please turn off the cameras. Please turn off the camera. It's a request to every participant to turn off the camera. Mule sir, Mahajan sir, please turn off the cameras. Good noon, participants. There is a technical issue at our side. Please be patient and be online. There is a slight technical issue at our side. Please be patient and be online. Thank you. Participants can also join us on YouTube. The link for YouTube Live is shared on the webinar's WhatsApp group. Participants can also join on YouTube. The link for YouTube Live is shared on your webinar's group. You can also share the link to the participants who are not able to join the Google Meet group. Good noon, participants. Apologies for late. There was a technical issue, so we were unable to start on time, but we are now online. We have a resource person with us, so I may have the permission to start the webinar. Okay. So, good afternoon, all. On behalf of Tapu Bank Senior Science College, I welcome you all to the national webinar. To the national webinar on wetlands for our future, organized by Department of Botany and IQSC on the occasion of World Wetland Day. Today's topic shines a spotlight on wetlands as a source of fresh water and encourage actions to restore them and stop their loss. We are facing a growing freshwater crisis that threatens people and our planet. 2nd February each year is World Wetlands Day to raise global awareness about the vital role of wetlands for people and our planet. Now, I would like to request Dr. Ghalme, Head of the Department and IQSC Coordinator, to have a few words of welcome address. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Madam. Greetings to respected Principal of our college, Dr. S.P. Jagdare, Vice Principal, Dr. G.B. Sathe, today's resource person and well-known ecologist, Dr. Mahesh Sindikar, all researchers, teacher delegates, and students. It gives me immense warmth and great pleasure to grace all of your presence in the interest of national webinar on wetland for our future. Overpopulation, pollution, and construction has led to a decrease in environmental conservation. Many wetlands are being lost and many are in serious threat. So, to focus attention and help raise public awareness about value and conservation of wetlands on the occasion of World's Wetland Day and Silver Jubilee year of our college, this national webinar is organized. I hope you all will enjoy today's national webinar. Definitely, it will help to create awareness, importance, and conservation of wetlands. Once again, on behalf of Botany Department and IQAC of Dapoli Urban Bank Senior Science College, Dapoli, I welcome you in this activity. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghalme. Now I request Dr. Jagdare, Principal of our college, to share his thoughts.
Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome behalf of Dapoli Urban Bank Senior Science College and Dapoli Education Society. This very demanding subject we have organized a webinar. The intention is a special day, that is 2nd February, which is declared as a World Wetland Day. The wetlands are very important ecosystems, and unfortunately, because of anthropological pressures on it, now those are going to be vanished if due care is not taken. I am very thankful to Department of Botany, IQAC of this college, my Vice Principal committee which has organized this particular webinar, and all the participants. I welcome on behalf of own side. I hope that today's guest, he is very expert in the particular field, and he will throw sufficient light on the particular topic. In real sense, this is a national seminar because there are participants. They have enrolled, registered from different states. I once again welcome, and give the best wishes, and I'll request to start the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, to begin with, today we have our resource person. He is PhD in ecological studies on mangroves of Maharashtra coast. He has various publications in national and international journals. He is assistant professor in COEP Pune with 10 years of teaching experience. He's expert member of Maharashtra Coastal Zone Management Authority, Government of India. He is expert member of Wetland Redressal Committee, Konkan Division, Government of Maharashtra. Now, I would request Dr. Mahesh Shindikar, sir, to start with his session. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of the Dapoli Urban Bank Senior Science College. Sir, please, over to you. Sir, please unmute. Sir, it's a request. Please unmute. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much, Deepali madam, for those nice words of introduction. I take this opportunity to thank the team for organizing this very important interaction using this online platform for all the participants across the nation on this issue, and with the advantage of the day, that is 2nd February 2021, where we are celebrating the World Wetland Day. Let me begin with congratulating all the team members of the institution, the Dapoli Urban Bank Senior Science College, all the members, with the effort of whom you have successfully completed 25 years. This is not at all a simple task, I know. Running an educational or academic institution these days is a full of a basket of challenges, but still with a very proud and nice gesture, this particular organization is running and shaping the career in the field of various disciplines of sciences. I thank each one of you for being here and encouraging me for the celebration of this World Wetland Day. Now I will just put off this video in order to adjust the bandwidth, and I will go for the presentation. I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
Not yet, sir.
Just a moment. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is 2nd February 2021 when we are meeting, and let us cherish this moment because we are meeting on the completion of 50th World Wetland Day. Long back in 1971, on the same day, representatives from different governments have joined together to think something seriously on our future with respect to the availability of water, because everybody knows that it is speculated, predicted that next world war will be for water. Thinking that long back, this people have decided to do something very seriously for the protection and conservation of the wetlands. And they have started doing something, meeting people, addressing governments, framing some policies, giving some guidelines for the betterment of these wetlands, and very nice terms that have been coined during this meeting. So I welcome you all for very detailed discussion on some of the selected wetlands from Maharashtra. And I'm very happy to share some of the findings from my own understandings while working with these wetlands, especially in the coastal region of Maharashtra. What are the different findings, and how, as Principal Sir has already explained, how we have dealt with these wetlands in our past, not only historical past but in the geological past. So many a times we focus only onto the anthropogenic pressures. No doubt they are very significant and they are running at very high speed in the geological time scale. But at the same time, there were some natural changes that have affected the well-being of these wetlands. So what are these wetlands? Wetlands are basically termed as areas of marsh, wetlands, so lands that are covered with grasses, algae, or vegetation, anything. So it may be covered with this vegetation or may not. It can be only water. This water body can be natural or artificial. So it can be both. It can be a naturally formed water body or artificial. The best example is our own lake from Parbhani district, that is Lonar, which is a natural lake, and it can be artificial. So any constructed dam, for example, Ujni or any kind of dam for that matter, can be the artificial wetland, permanent or temporary. So it is not that this particular interaction of water with the soil will be permanent always. It can be temporary. So just now what we have seen, the temporary water bodies that are formed, the puddles that are formed onto the lateritic plateaus very near to your own land of Dapoli, all across Ratnagiri and Sindhudurga is privileged to have this particular water body. So you have some low altitude, some high altitude plateaus, which otherwise in all 7 to 8 months remain barren. But these 4 months of monsoon period, the seasonal associated with the system. So these wetlands can be permanent or temporary. The water, when we are considering the wetlands, this water can be stagnant or it can be flowing. So both types of water conditions are accepted in the definition of wetland. It can be fresh water, so you are considering all the surface water as well as underground water. Even you are considering the water in the solid state, so that is ice. So everything is considered over here. It can be brackish water. It is combination of fresh water with marine water or salt water. So all these areas also are encompassed, taken as a part of wetlands in the broader definition, which is prescribed to define these very significant lands for us. So anything that becomes or that converts the land into wetness, anything that adds wetness into lands is wetland. So if you can see along the marine environment also, the low tide where it doesn't exceed 6 meters also is encompassed in the definition of wetlands. And this is the output of the discussion that was in 1971, the oldest kind of international convention that kind. Why we are dealing with wetlands? The simple answer is these are the most productive lands. These are the most productive sites, areas of the globe that supports huge amount of biological diversity, right from the producers to consumers to the microorganisms as well as decomposers. So it is a cradle of ecological diversity. It is source of water as well as the productivity. So think of a situation of a paddy field, which is the most important crop for the entire world, and we have more than 2 lakhs of species of the rice which are known and are as the part of the gene bank. So ecology and economy, both aspects are very prominent whenever we are talking about the significance of these wetlands. They're ecologically important is because they are representing the ecotonal communities where land meets the water. So both these aspects, both these diversity elements can happily uh, enjoy their association in the ecological aspects of these wetlands. Water being very essential requirement of life. This is made available in these wetlands. So obviously, the diversity will also be pronounced and represented very actively in this wetlands. Economy, obviously, whenever we have large or huge amount of biological wealth and you have the dependent economy in terms of getting the material from plants, or you are using the animals or using the microorganisms for our day-to-day or basic needs up to the industrial needs, the economy of our development is widely supported by wetlands. Think of a situation whenever we want to purchase a new house, you can see and you will get attracted with the terms of lake view apartment. So this is the simplest example that I can cite for the benefit of all of us. That hill view, lake view, marine view, these are the indicators of the natural assets that are added to the location of your apartment, of your bungalow that you want to live in. So this is the added value to the economics directly or indirectly for the wetlands. They are thus vital for our own survival on this earth. So because we cannot think of life without water, and we have seen that water can create havoc, the availability of water becomes so much so important for all of us for our own existence on this planet. At the same time, as expressed by the organizers, Galmi sir, natural and anthropogenic threats are very important problems before these wetlands. And for years together, if you trace back the history, thousands of hectares of wetlands are lost from their own natural way and the diversity that they used to harbor at once upon a time. So these pressures, which are natural in some way and anthropogenic in other way, are very important for all of us to understand the threats to these wetlands. These wetlands have remained neglected and exploited for long period of time. As I said, if you compare the losses of forest lands, the losses of even the great forests that we count for the globe, the losses of wetlands are much more and in multiples. But unfortunately, they always remain neglected, and that's why there is a need to for a serious thought. There is need to understand the seriousness about these wetlands in order to have a proper protection. As I said, in 1971, this convention was organized long back, which was intergovernmental treaty for framing the framework of conservation and wise use. So these terms are very crucial. Conservation, as everybody knows, we have to protect, and not only protect but allow the natural changes that are going on in particular system uninterrupted. So that means conservation. So we have to not only protect the or not only offer the physical protection to the wetlands, but we have to allow them the chance to grow and develop as per the changing surrounding. So that conservation and wise use, this is a very nice term, and we have to appreciate many a times we are getting influenced by various terms, glamorous terms that are used, sustainable, but more than sustainable, what is required is wise use of these wetlands and all the resources that are involved in these wetlands. This particular convention was discussed in Ramsar, as I said, in 1971, and with the contribution of seven or leading of seven countries that has came into force in 1975. 21st of December was the date, and almost, if you see today, 90% of all United Nations member states are becoming parties, or they have accepted this particular Ramsar Convention. This is probably the only convention which talks about conservation and wise use of the entire ecosystem. So, talking about wetlands, we are not talking about individual plant or individual animal or individual microorganism, or for that matter, any particular landscape, but we are talking about the entire wetlands. So today, if you count the number of contracting parties ranging up to 171, which covers the declaration of or designation of more than 2,000 wetland sites, and billions of hectares of area is taken care with the help of this. As I said, today we are celebrating the 50th year of this convention, 1971 and 2021. So exactly we have covered 50 glorious years of celebration of this Ramsar site. Starting from 7 countries, we have reached to 117 countries. Starting from 2 sites, we have reached to 2,000 odd sites today. So this is the success mapping of the Ramsar Convention. As I said, this talks about conservation and wise use, where local and national actions are planned, are expected. The guidelines are given that every country, every nation, every part of the nation, every state for that matter, has to come out with some action plan for the conservation and betterment in the use of these wetlands. For the same, whatever international cooperation is required or anticipated is also has to be extended by the countries. So different developed countries, developing countries, and underdeveloped countries may have their own traditional or sophisticated mechanism of this protection, conservation, and wise use of wetlands. So let us use Globe as a platform to share and cooperate for the conservation of these wetlands. So the ultimate objective is for the long-term development or co-development association, enriching the harmony, peaceful association with these wetlands, because these are something which are going to get lost if we do not take proper care in the years to come. Different types of wetlands. We have India inland wetlands and coastal wetlands as far as Indian scenario is concerned. Out of them, let us try to understand some aspects as designed and given by the organizers to me. In case of India, we have till date in December 2020, finally we have 42 Ramsar sites, and I can underline the contribution by the government of India. In 2019, there were 27 sites, and 15 sites were added in just 1 year to 2020. And now the number reaches to 42 Ramsar wetlands, where hectares of land is taken in care through the special protection that is given. We have started our journey with the declaration of Chilka Lake. Everybody knows from Orissa, which is the largest Ramsar site. And with this was the first step of declaration of Ramsar designation to the important, globally important areas in India. So Chilka Lake and Koyladev National Park from Rajasthan were the first Ramsar site declared by the government. Uttar Pradesh, if you see carefully, is holding or harboring 8 wetland, Ramsar designated wetlands. So that is very important state having the wetland as significant ecosystem in focus. Renuka wetland in Himachal Pradesh, on the other hand, can be said to be a very smallest area, a wetland having the area of around 20 hectares. So these are some important things, very relevant and important as far as government of India is concerned. Talking the Ramsar sites in our own state, we have two designated Ramsar areas. One is Nandur Madmeshwar at the boundary of Nashik and Ahmednagar district. This Nandur Madmeshwar is very old dam that was constructed by the British's time. And this particular area is really speaking the heaven for uh, the birds, especially migratory birds, so also the residential birds. And another site which I was mentioning, the Lonar Lake, which is a natural place where this water and land interacts with each other to form a very beautiful, globally recognized site for Ramsar. Uh, as we have discussed, this is the National Biodiversity uh, out output for wetland ecosystems. What are the different types of wetlands that are supported on our own land? What are the different ecological succession changes that are occurring in the wetland ecosystems? What are the problems of these wetlands are nicely summarized in this particular brochure. Uh, Let us come to our own topic of discussion for today, that is correlating the past and present. How best these mangrove ecosystems can be used to correlate our own past, geological, historical past, and today, how we are going ahead. What are the problems? What are the aspects, perspectives of these wetlands and the problems? We will have a critical assessment with the help of mangrove ecosystem. Now, why should I take mangroves? Because again, this is an internal community which is having the unique opportunity to stay in between the salt water and fresh water, in between the water and land. So, in all these aspects, these mangroves are nothing but a very dynamic system or representation representing very diverse type of forest and ecosystems along the coastal regions of Maharashtra. And that's why we have taken for today's discussion this as very significant wetland. The additional advantage of wetlands is wetlands are providing you the sedimentary environment. And that is very significant and important because the sediments that are carried from the catchment area are getting deposited year by year. And thus, if you can study these sediments, you can study also the history of that particular catchment area. So wetland represents the repository of the entire catchment area for the entire system. So understanding mangrove wetlands is having dual benefit. One is it is offering us the understanding of what is going on currently, as well as if you go back and trace back the history, you will be also encompassing the events that have taken place in the past. So let us try to understand the diversity and patterns of these mangrove distribution towards the mouth of the creek, away from the creek, towards the tidal incursion, away from the tidal incursion. All this represents nice kind of diversity and different patterns are established in the mangroves. Mangroves, as everybody knows, have very unique kind of distribution. So you have old world mangroves, and we are very fortunate. Indo-Malayan region is the native place for the development of, and the native of mangroves is the Sundarban and the surrounding area. So world's largest patch of mangrove is owned by, jointly owned by, we can say politically now, India and Bangladesh. So this is very important system for all of us to know and understand this significance of mangroves. We have coastal wetlands. So under Section 7, a special status has been given to to mangroves, even in under Ramsar Convention. They are very sensitive, as I said, to climatic and anthropogenic factors. This is a sedimentary environment already. I have underlined the significance of this. So not only today's scenario, you can trace back the history. That is an added advantage. We have the role, as we have discussed about wetlands in general. Mangroves play very significant role in the coastal sustenance. This is just a rough idea about what are the areas which are influenced by the mangrove ecosystem. So right from food, fodder, timber, fieldweed, then nesting sites for the birds, migratory birds. It is the best nursery for all the aquatic organisms. They are land builders because they prevent losses of soil through water or wind. Then effluent treatment, the countries like China, they are nicely utilizing these mangroves as the effluent treatment sites. They are the sufficient sources for nutrients for the marine environment. They protect coral reefs, they protect the coast. Then they are known as wetland makers. They are habitat for aquaculture. They are known for recreation values, scientific and educational values, aesthetics and medicine. So in almost all aspects of our understanding and benefit, these mangroves are contributing to the life of the coastal people and coastal development. As we know that more than 60% of the today's population also resides in the small strip of 20 to 40 kilometers along the coast, where mangroves play a very significant role. And I'm very happy that I'm sharing this with the institute, which itself is in the bracket of this coastal area. So whenever we talk about mangrove ecosystem, we have to talk about different factors that are affecting the survival, existence, and functioning of the system. These factors can be hydrological factors, geophysical factors, biotic factors, and geomorphic factors. So there are different factors which ultimately affect this system. As we know, the ecotonal communities have to suffer from both the sides as they are advantage from both the sides. So whatever privilege that they do enjoy, similarly they have to face the problem from either side. Talking about Maharashtra coast, we are again having a very unique position as far as climatic conditions are taken. We are exactly in the center of the Gujarat, which is representing the dry climatic conditions, and Goa, Karnataka, or Kerala, which represents the humid climatic conditions. So we are sharing the climatic locations or conditions with both. So as the mangroves are in the center of land and sea, Maharashtra is in the center of the two extremes of climatic conditions. So geological, geomorphological, biodiversity and climate aspects are very unique for this coast. Even we can talk about anthropogenic aspects with respect to economy, development, settlement history. Maharashtra represents a very unique position and developmental history whenever we are talking and discussing about the coast. The records which are in the recent past and made available from this, which are known as quaternary records for the coast. So as we do not have that much baseline data, this attempt to get this data, these are all the geological details or geomorphological details for the coast of Maharashtra. We have around 64 creeks and 4 major estuaries along the coast, which is popularly known as Konkan coast, having the extent of around 720 kilometers along the coast. So which really enjoys the tropical warm humid climate, and we are part of the Malabar provenance zone botanically. Whenever we trace back geology, drainage pattern, and soil map, again, we are very fortunate that we are resting on the geologically very significant basalt type of formation. But at the same time, this coastal strip which represents very significant geological or geomorphological formations due to the action of geology as well as the marine actions or tidal actions. This is a very unique environment that is provided along the coast. It is in general, other than mangroves also, it is represented with very rich amount of floral and faunal association all across this coast. So in this work, what we have to understand is what has happened in the past, that is known as paleoecological studies, and what is the present scenario, which will be understood in the ecological studies. And in addition to that, as suggested by the organizers, I will throw some light on what are the current threats and conservation issues on these mangroves for today. Whenever we are talking about paleoecology, uh, always you will have two dimensions. One changes with time, one changes with space. So spatial and temporal dimension has to be understood for the mangrove environments or coastal sedimentary environments. And who are the indicators, who will help us, which are the candidates on which we will rely to get this information are nothing but the pollen, spores, or the plant remains that are sedimented in the mangrove environment, which are drifted from the nearest region all past. Or which are very difficult to degrade because of the chemical geology and this remain forever for years together. They represent the flora of the past. So in this sedimentary environment, if you can take back the soil strata from respective depth and we can correlate that data with which type of pollen grains that you observe, and then you can think of and predict the past. So this is very important. What are the climatic conditions that were prevailing in the past and what are the pollen records? If you try to correlate, we will easily be understanding the impacts of the environmental conditions in the past onto the vegetation. So how it is done, which is very common, you can appreciate from the resident of Konkan region. Many a times during summer, we dig out the wells. And if you go down away from the coast, say 20-25 kilometers, if you dig out the well, at the bottom you will get the lignite. So here you can easily find the lignitic material that we are getting. And these lignites, they represent the fossilized material that represents something from the past, and whatever lignite that we are getting along the Konkan coast, as I said, up to from Ratnagiri south, or even in some plateaus of Ratnagiri, you will find these lignite beds, and these beds will give you the history about 2 million years before. So this is very important clue or message that we are getting what has happened in the past. And if you go to the coast and get the samples, you will get the representation of these samples from the soil. The pollen grains, if you try to isolate, if you can take core, so we can take these pollen grains, study them, and correlate what has happened in the past. So collection and preservation is very important along the coast. Chronology, how can we decide that how old these soil samples are or this lignite material is? So for that, you should use the dating techniques. There are various techniques that can be used. Carbon-14 dating technique is very well recognized technique in the scientific work. In addition to that, in recent years, what has happened, if you have sand which is devoid of carbon or which has very less amount of carbon, where carbon-14 method will not help you, there you can go for luminescence dating. In addition to that, the properties, the magnetic properties of the soil material can give us idea, can throw light on the susceptibility parameters. So based on that, we can understand what are the climatic conditions, whether it was a dry spell or it was a wet spell. So whether availability of water was more when these sediments were deposited or it is less. So that is a very significant aspect for our understanding. As I said, along the coast, we have observed Neogene period, that is roughly 2 million years before. Uh, as I said, along Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg, you can get such samples. And Holocene, we have studied from two different locations. One is in the northern part in Mumbai, and southern is in the southern part of Konkan, that is Sindhudurg. So this is how these pollen grains look like. So these are different mangrove species that are found along the Maharashtra coast. The dominant species are enlisted over here, and these are the pollens that are isolated and studied to understand what is the shape, size, structure, how it looks like, just to compare. If we are getting similar kind of pollen in the past records, we can say that yes, this pollen belongs to that species, and that resembles that the particular species was existing during that time. So this is how indirectly we are correlating with the help of the candidates as pollen grains in tracing the history of mangroves. Now, this what we have seen are the pollen grains of the existing mangrove species and the collected samples from all these beautiful flowers. Similarly, we are getting from the soil. These are the different pollen grains, spores, fungal spores, or whatever remains from the plant, like cuticles. All these are segregated and studied, isolated from different depths, from different soil, that is, or sediments that are were collected along the coast. Now, for example, these are the fungal spores, and these fungal spores, they belong to some species. Siranella is the species. No need to remember these names, but what is very important for us is these species or these fungal elements are found to be associated with the pneumatophores. I hope everybody has heard about mangroves and the pneumatophores. Because the soil is saturated, the roots come above ground and they provide the platform to exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen. Near to these pneumatophores, these species, they certainly occur. So whenever we are finding these species, we are very sure indirectly that these species indicate the pneumatophore environment. And the two important species, for example, Avicennia and Sonaricia, which are blessed with these pneumatophore or good development of pneumatophore, were present during that period of time. So it is very clear to trace what was the past conditions with respect to these pneumatophores. This I was talking about in Sindhudurg in the Kolam region. These are the lignitic materials that were observed to the depth of the well, and there we could see that just like today's pneumatophore, you can have similar morphological element which was fossilized. And with the help of the internal assessment, with the help of all the details, we could compare these and name these as the fossil pneumatophores, which was declared from the Konkan region for the first time. So it is in global record now that pneumatophores fossils is always recognized, and the credit will always go to the Konkan coast because of this very important finding. And for this, we have to be only careful to see, collect such samples and analyze them by making use of various techniques. Now, here only this morphological similarity will not help you claiming that these are pneumatophores. But as I said, from the lignitic material, whatever pollen grains were isolated, show the necessary association of fungal elements, which endorse that these are pneumatophoric sedimentary environment. So what are the different pollen grains? What are the different things that we can find from these soil study. This can be mangrove pollen. If you can see various types of mangroves, their pollen grains, the pollen grains that are drifted from the nearby wetlands, freshwater or terrestrial vegetation. There are some marine plankton plus algae and fungi. They can contribute at some level, as I said, as the repository material and the cuticles. So these are the different palinoflora assemblage that we can obtain from this particular sediment studies, and that gives us history about our own past. On similar ground, we have also taken the samples and easily see the material that we have got from the earlier from the and northern part of Konkan as well as Mumbai. So yes, there is in the geology part also, in the recent past also, that replayed or influenced by these kind of conditions. Just for our understanding, as we have seen here to take samples from the wells, we can also dig out the material from the wetlands, the coastal wetlands at different depths. You can see over here at different depths, we are collecting the samples and analyzing them and assigning their distribution so that you can just date this and you can assign that at this depth, this was the flora and weather condition. For example, here there are dominance of freshwater elements. These elements, they're combination of mangroves as well as other freshwater elements which are getting drifted from the wetlands. And this is a significant aspect for our understanding and different this is how it is only qualitative study model. Scientific of grain, what quantity are present, are mapped or graphed over here in order to understand how the changes have taken place. And here you can see different dates. So by making use of carbon dating, at the bottom, this is roughly around 7,000 years before what has happened, 6,000 years, 4,000 years, up to today. So some thousand years back, and surface will give you today's scenario. So the history for last 700, 800, 7 to 8,000 years is possible for us to trace with the help of this profile. So same thing was applied and it was supported by, as I said, magnetic parameter study in order to give the differences. So here you can see this is a which is shaded with blue color represents the climatic conditions which are wet, and the changes you can see with these diagrams, with these graphs. So here more or less it is constant because it was wet period, and here comparatively it is dry period. So you can see significant changes, drastic changes would take place, and that bifurcates this entire trench into two regions, which is given over here. From here down south, downwards, you can see the wet spale, which is enriched with the mangrove and freshwater pollen grains. And on the top, you can see there are less availability of pollen and other palinoflora, which represents the dry spell, and less vegetation is present. And here also you can see from the trench, the upper side is devoid of any material which represents the wetland conditions, while as below you can see very well the wet spell or the material which gives us idea about or elements of wetlands. So there were many results that were discussed from both neogene or lignitic material as well as the clay material that is obtained from the Holocene period. So how this Maharashtra coast is subjected for different kinds of changes or environmental parameters. So there are three very important aspects that are to be covered. One is rise and fall in the sea level. So sea level fluctuation changes. Second is the shifts in the climate, which we have seen, dry spell and wet spell. And third is geological changes with the help of tectonics and other evidences or incidences which have taken place in the geological past. So all the three elements, they have acted upon the coast of Maharashtra, which were very significant in tracing the history of the mangrove wetlands in Maharashtra. So basically, we can easily compile this entire data. So what was in the past? So 40,000 years, and before that, you have luxuriant growth and heavy rainfall conditions. But during 22 to 18,000 years, it was found that poor growth because of the dry spell. Again, high rainfall duration came into 14,000 to 4,000 and 4,000 to today. Again, there is a shift. So you can find there is a climatic cycle which is operative, and that gives us idea about what was our history, which is spread across the time span. So older type, first generation, second generation, and today's generation types that can be easily found out to know various generations of mangrove deposits along the Maharashtra coast. Whenever we are talking about today's condition, let us have a quick journey about different types of mangrove systems and the elements, the floral elements. There are roughly 19 species uh, found along the coast of Maharashtra, and we are very fortunate to have the diversity. As compared to the coast of Gujarat, we have sufficient diversity of mangroves, though we have very limited um, area for harboring to harbor these mangroves because of immediate Western Ghat or occurrence of Western Ghat, but still we can find these rhizophoras, which are popularly known as Kandar in local language, and that's why we assign these areas as Kandar 1. So this is very significant species all across the globe, probably the oldest species, and the name mangroves comes from the species mangi in Portuguese language, which is Rhizophora. So this is the nomenclatural base for the term mangroves. So Rhizophora is very important, significant species all along the Konkan coast or Maharashtra coast, which is economically also very important because it is a chief source of the tannin material. It has a very thick growth of the roots which protects all the coastal life, and it gives the area for migratory birds. These are the species that happily grow along the borders of the creeks. They can face the tidal changes, and that's why they are very important in protecting the coastal regions from the cyclones or tides. Very recently, we have experienced the cyclone in the year 2020, right from 1994, where we have experienced for the first time Orissa cyclone, and from there till today, we have realized that whenever there are mangrove elements present along the coast, the impact would be very less in the coastal regions with respect to loss of property or material or even the casualties. So all this is very important. So they are acting like green walls along the Konkan coast, and Rhizophora contributes very significantly in this. The another species which are part of Rhizophoraceae family, Candelia. If you happen to go to the areas where these are or at the confluence of the two different rivers, Vashishti and Jagbudi in Ratnagiri, you will find the growth of Candelia species. There is another species which is not that tall in Maharashtra, which grows in shrubby condition, which is known as Cereops tagal. So Kandar one you might have heard. So this Candelia might have given the base for calling this as a candle one. And Cereops is another important species. You might have heard about these days people are more inclining to have herbal tea. What is the purpose of calling it as herbal tea? I don't understand, but still popularly people call it as herbal tea. So the natural material, the leaves of these Cereobstacle uh, were explored to use them as tea, and traditionally it is used as tea in various parts of the countries in the East, Southeast Asian parts. Another very important and beautiful plant is Brugera. That is Brugera. There are two species observed in along the coast of Maharashtra, but they are specially known because of this knee-like roots. So they have very specialized root system other than the pneumatophores or the aerial roots what we have observed in the Rhizophoriaceae family or Rhizophora genus. These Brugera, though they belong to this family, they represent the knee roots. There is another species known as Brugera cylindrica and parviflora, which is significantly showing the distribution. You will find Brugera cylindrica growing the Raigad above. So Raigad, Mumbai, and Thane, these three districts, you will find the good occurrence of Brugera cylindrica, while Raigad you'll find the more diversity of Brugera gymnorrhiza and Brugera parviflora. So this is how, with respect to climate, the species from the same genus also decides their own geographical territory. So it is not only restricted to animals, but even plants understand their geographical limits and they know their own distribution, how to manage, how to adjust with the climatic or surrounding conditions. Same thing you can study about Sonaricia. There are three species, Sonaricia alba and Sonaricia apetala, first two species. They will also show the geographical distribution pattern. Raigad, Thane, Mumbai, you will have dominance of Sonaricia apetala, while as the first very beautiful flower with white color stamens, or even the last that is Sonaricia cassularis, you will find in the southern part, Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg part, or southern Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg part. So this distribution of species also would be very peculiar and characteristic as far as the distribution of the species of mangroves in today's scenario is concerned. One of the most dominant species, not only for Maharashtra, but the entire globe, is Abyssinia. Abyssinia, you have Marina, two subspecies, and Abyssinia officinalis, which dominates the coast of Maharashtra. This species is so interesting that it can occupy any region to the extent of any salinity, to the extent of any pollution, any anthropogenic pressure, anything. So this is most sturdy species that we can say, which is popularly known as Tivar along the coast of Maharashtra. There are some other species which are very important. For example, Aegisiros, you can see the beautiful assemblage of flower and having very good fragrance. You have the Euphorbiaceae in the center, which is the ideal raw material for the paper and pulp industry. You have Acanthaceae, which has the very important medicinal properties, and it is representing the second generation of mangrove. So where the original forest is disturbed or cut or damaged, you will find the luxuriant growth of this Acanthus ilicifolius. In addition to that, again, the property of southern Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg is the Xylocarpus, very unique species that is present from mangroves, even Cyanometra, which is present in the southern part of Konkan. So these species you won't get in the northern part, maybe because of the climatic conditions and the restrictions that they have for their own growth. Another species is Limnadzera, which is represented over here. In addition to mangroves, there are some associate species like Sueda, like Sesuvium, which are growing along the coastal region in the saline area, saline blanks, saline hedges of the mangrove environment. The lower one, you most of you must have heard about the toothpaste meswak, which is prepared from the Salvadora persica, which is most dominant mangrove associate, we can say, all along the coastal regions. When you analyze this clerically, uh, if you have on your y-axis all the locations along the Maharashtra coast, and on x-axis, if you map or mark the existence of or presence of these mangrove species, you can very well see the north-south gradient, very importantly playing role in the distribution of species and subspecies along the coast. There are around 18 mangrove species, out of which 15 common associates, 68 total number of sampling units, and what we get is the distribution pattern. Now, what are the how the climatic conditions influence the distribution? So this we cannot study on the basis of some 2 years, 10 years, 5 years work. But for that, what we have done is analysis of last 100 years, and there, based on the total rainfall and the temperature range. So temperature range also plays very crucial role. Minimum is the temperature range, maximum is the growth of mangroves, or more is the rainfall and rainy days, you will have more growth of mangroves representing wet conditions. So meteorological station from north to south, if you trace from Dahanu to Devgarh, you will find very clear understanding of the north-south gradient, which is observed because of the or in response to the climatic conditions. Same is true with your own estuaries. Savitri at the border of Raigad and Ratnagiri, and Vasishti in the center of your own district, you will find there are some species which will grow right from the mouth of the river to the upstream. There are some species which will prefer the midway. There are some species which will only grow near the mouth of the creek, and there are some species which will grow on the upstream locations. There are some which will have disjunct locations. So this is very significant theme that gives us idea about pattern of distribution of these mangroves along the creek. So this is very indicative but very significant output from the uh, analysis or study on the distribution pattern of mangroves along the coast. These are some representative sites. So right from our border with Gujarat, that is Zai River, which separates Gujarat and Maharashtra, till this is the Terekhol River, which segregates or which separates the Goa and Maharashtra. So this is the journey from north to south, how it happens, how the mangrove forest changes, what is the condition. You can very well see here in the Thane, Raigad, Palghar districts, the growth overall is very sturdy. The short, stunted growth, as against in Ratnagiri and Sindhudurg, you will find good growth of mangrove forests. So tall trees, humid conditions, diversity also would be more in this southern part of the state of Maharashtra. So if you are concentrating on just a single wetland, how different patterns, how different conditions we are able to understand and study with the help of this simple understanding or simple study that is picturized in this slide. So this analysis from north-south, how it differs, what is the species composition, how qualitatively as well as quantitatively it is changing, that is mapped in this particular representation. So for the first time, we have done it systematically. We have understood the threatened level, because global scale species might be threatened. Maybe it is threatened at national scale, but in local scale it is very common. So rearranging this threatened status as per the local conditions, their distribution, understanding the horizontal and vertical profile at particular sampling location, knowing the richness and diversity of species, preferences of habitats shown by the species is this very important. Coming to the last section of knowing about what are the different threats and conservation issues in mangroves. So there are many threats as so to counter. There are various noteworthy conservation efforts that are going on in mangroves at local scale, at regional scale, at government level, at non-government or NGO, or even at the personal level. These mangrove areas are blessed with many contributors. What are the major threats? Very importantly, it is found that wood cutting, felling of wood, and which is very common and obvious threat that is observed. And what is the impact of this? There will not be good growth of mangrove forests, but they will remain stunted. They will lose the diversity. The next is conversion of these mangrove wetlands into different economic purposes. That is the fish or prawn culture ponds, or changing them, transforming them into salt pans, so on and so forth. And that is resulted into loss of diversity. There is a very important anthropogenic pressure or factor of pollution. And you can see very clearly wherever this polluted water is flowing, all the trees are becoming dry because of the excessive pollutants, and other trees are remain green because of because they are away from this polluted water source. So this is very significant uh, traits which are observed. Another important thing or trait with which we have lost more than 40% of total mangroves along the coast is the development of the salt or khar land, khar bandara in local term. So this, for example, is the site where this bandara is constructed, and which will uh, cut the water supply or tidal influence into the remaining part of this entire area. And there you will find the entire mangrove land will slowly become dry, and that can be converted into agriculture or any other form of human use. So this construction of Khar Bandara, Khar land by the Khar Land Board is one of the very important problem challenge before the uh, mangroves. When you consider a unique case, for example, Mumbai, you will find this Mumbai is highly populated. They have to adjust all their waste disposal mechanisms in and around Mumbai, and from all sides you will have they are exposed to this creek or other marine environment, where this particular treatment of waste or treatment or solid waste dumping sites, dumping of the waste, construction and extension of material, reclamation, dredging of sand, throwing the treated or untreated waste into these areas, conversion into the salt pans. All this happens in and along Mumbai because of these developmental aspects. So this is a cumulative picture which shows huge amount of impact of different developmental activities that are directly or indirectly affecting the mangrove areas, and see the huge dumping of solid waste of this in the vicinity of the area. So all these are the critical impacts. Say, for example, very ambitious project in Mumbai, then coastal road along on the city. All these developments will have certainly have impacts on the distribution, diversity, growth, and sustenance of these mangrove ecosystems. And as we know, they are not only for the economics, but they are important equally for the ecological study or ecological well-being of the coastal regions. So these threats become very prevalent and important for all of us to understand. These days, we know the ill impacts of or harmful impacts of plastic, which can be considered to be non-biodegradable solid waste. So we can roughly classify into plastic, rubber, or glass material. And this we have done along the coast of Mumbai, the mangrove area, which is in vicinity to the dumping depot Gorai dumping depot of Mumbai, and you can see huge amount of this non-biodegradable plastic waste is getting accumulated and permanently buried in the wetlands of mangrove areas. So these are very important threats to today's wetlands. In addition to that, why to blame always to the anthropogenic activities? There are some natural elements also causing problems to the mangrove areas. This was the this is a case where this you can see this is a moth popularly known as Teak Defoliator. Scientifically, or zoological name is the Hablia pivera, and this particular is feeding on the Avicennia that we have seen as Tiver plant. So this is basically a moth that is voracious. The caterpillar is voracious eater of the leaves, and you can see the impact. The entire area becomes defoliated because it is infested by this moth. And for time being, within 2 months' time, this entire region, these plants will regain their leaves. So this is only a periodic stress given by this particular moth to the area of Thane Creek. And you can see the comparative account. Whatever is shown in yellow color represents the area which is infested by these moths. And this particular phenomena is very constant right from 1995 till today. People are observing this. This happens only during the month of September and October. And again, when you are welcoming the new year, the leaves also are regained. So this is a periodic phenomena which is observed and studied by making use of the recent techniques like remote sensing. Similarly, you can use tissue culture to conserve these plants. So there are multiple efforts required for the conservation, understanding, monitoring of these. One of the very important aspect is declaration and giving protection from the government side. So marine protected areas along the coast, we are fortunate to declare 6 such marine protected areas on the basis of different scientific activities, works, research projects carried out. There are many institutions, many people, scientists and workers which are contributing for knowing better about these mangrove ecosystem these days. But what I would urge and request from the institute like you, for whom going to or reaching to the mangroves would be very easy task, you should take many projects, many initiatives through your in-house or funded projects and work majoritarily on this mangrove and related coastal wetlands. Today, being part of the wetland committee, what I found is whatever wetlands which are having already protection from any protected area framework network are anyway getting protected, but the areas which are in the public domain under revenue department or in the private sector, we have to take special efforts, and that can be taken only at the local level. So this is very important for all of us to form the group, making students and the general public aware about the wetlands that we have, convert them into very important wetlands, understand their significance, understand the significance of the wetlands in terms of ecology and economy, popularize the birds that are visiting those wetlands, popularizing the benefits that we are drawing out of them, popularizing very significant features of those wetlands, and then make people aware and active for the protection and benefit and sustainable or wise use of these wetlands. So no doubt there are different ways of creating awareness, different ways of doing laboratory scale conservation or field scale conservation, plantation, then government rules and regulations, from school level to college level, appreciation, understanding, and popularization. All these efforts are possible, and we can very well take these modes and mechanisms for the conservation of these wetlands. After all, while doing all this Koken model of mangrove evolution or mangrove wetland evolution could be formed, which is starting from the Neogene level, which talks about something like 2 million years before. So, what are the different changes taken place from the geological side, climatic side, or sea level side that we have studied? And next to that is anthropogenic intervention, which was highlighted by all the dignitaries. So pollution, wood felling, diversion of fresh water, all these are anthropogenic pressures which are very prominent and relevant in the recent past in the Holocene, and that has affected the distribution and pattern of mangroves, the diversity and the succession pattern also has inversely affected by this model. So these are very important parameters and observations. The significant contribution is with such studies we can correlate the past and present of the mangrove wetlands, or for that matter any wetland. Here we have considered this as a coastal wetland. We can know the current status, we can have quantification and qualitative observations. We can change, we can try to gauge what are the possible impacts. We can trace them with the help of the dating techniques. We can divide, we can construct the model of the evolution. So also we can know the temporal and spatial threats to these wetlands, and we can accordingly design the policy for its conservation. So this is all about that I wanted to share using this platform on this very special day of wetland that we are celebrating today. This entire work was possible with many contribution of many organizations and institutes that are listed over here. I especially thank for today's interaction to the authorities of Dapoli Education Society's College, Senior Science College. I especially acknowledge the efforts of Principal Jagdare sir and his team, IQAC coordinator and head of the department, Halmi sir, Dipali madam, who has taken efforts to coordinate everything for today's discussion. I think I will stop sharing the slides now, and I will make this platform open if you have any questions, queries to ask. I will go to slide number 1 again, so that in future also if you want some information, then you can contact me using this data. I will just a moment. Yes, now I think the slides are taken back, and I would request the participants to ask some queries, questions. I hope I have given you some answers to the questions related to this mangrove ecosystem. I'm sorry that I'm late for more than 20-25 minutes, because it was scheduled from 12 to 1 and we have reached to 1:30 time now. So please. So you can unmute yourself and ask the question if you have.
Participants can ask any questions if they have any query. If there are any questions regarding today's topic, participants can ask their queries directly to the sir by unmuting themselves. Okay. Shindikar sir, I guess there are no queries right now from the participants.
Okay, then thank you very much, madam, and all the organizers. With your kind permission, May I take your leave because I have to join another meeting?
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll just thank you on behalf of Dapuli Urban Bank Senior Science College for such an innovative session. And thank you for all the information from altogether from Ramsar Convention to altogether like Miswak toothpaste. So thank you so much. And we will be looking forward for such sessions in the future also. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Participants, you are notified that your feedback link will be sent to your WhatsApp groups. Your feedback link for today's session will be sent to the WhatsApp group. You have to fill in the forms and send it to the respective email ID. If you have registered your email ID to the form, you will get your certificates in next 3 to 4 working days. You will get your certificate on your registered email ID in 3 to 4 working days. The link will be shared on the WhatsApp group. Please note that. I thank all the participants for attending the webinar. Thank you all.